भवरोगहरां प्रणमामि परां जननीं जगतां इव भृङ्गमनो भवरोगहरां प्रणमामि परां जननीं जगताम्।
कृपां कुरु महादेवी सुतेषु प्रणतेषु च चरणाश्रयदानेन कृपामयि नमोऽस्तु ते। लज्जापटावृते नित्यं सारदे ज्ञानदायिके पापेभ्यो नः सदा रक्ष कृपामयि नमोऽस्तु ते। रामकृष्णगतप्राणां तन्नामश्रवणप्रियां तद्भावरञ्जिताकारां प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। पवित्रं चरितं यस्या पवित्रं जीवनं तथा पवित्रता स्वरूपिण्यै तस्यै देव्यै नमो नमः।
प्रसन्ना प्रणतार्तिहन्त्री योगीन्द्रपूज्या युगधर्मपात्री देवीं प्रसन्ना प्रणतार्तिहन्त्री योगीन्द्रपूज्या युगधर्मपात्री तां शारदां भक्तिविज्ञानदात्री तां शारदां भक्तिविज्ञानदात्री दयास्वरूपां प्रणमामि नित्यं स्नेहेन बध्नासि मनः स्मदीयम् दोषान् शेषान् सगुणीकरोषि अहेतुनानो दयसे सदोषान् अहेतुनानो दयसे सदोषान् स्वाङ्गे गृहीत्वा यदिदं विचित्रम् प्रसीद मात्र विनयेन याचे।
We'll begin. You can tell me when we are.
Yeah, a good people. We'll give another 30 seconds, Maharaj. You can start, Maharaj.
Yeah. Om apyayendu mama angani vakpranaschakshrusrotramadho balamindriyani cha sarvani sarvam brahma upanishadam maham brahma nirakuryam mama brahma nirakarod anirakaranamastu anirakaranam me astu तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. So, since today we are going to conclude the session, I shall give a brief synopsis, a summary of what we have discussed so far, and also what we are going to discuss this afternoon. So first you should remember the name of the Upanishad is Kena Upanishad. Kena, ki is a Kim Shabda. By what? That's the literal meaning. Now the first chapter contains some very important topics. First of all, there is a question with regard to the nature of Brahman. I mean, what is that transcendental, invisible power that drives our senses and mind to the different objects? This question. Kena ishidam padati preshidam manaha kena prana prathama praini yukta, etc. So this is a question with regard to the nature of Brahman. Then there are some descriptions, definitions of Brahman. What is the nature of Brahman? What is the nature of Atma? So Atma is described as drashta, as the experiencer, the seer, the subject, the pramata, the knower. So, and then the existence of Atma is confirmed, and then what are the essential qualifications for understanding the nature of Brahman? All these are given. In the second chapter, you find a very interesting story. That comes, of course, in the third. That story begins in the third chapter, but in the second chapter, after giving the long descriptions of Atman as something beyond known and unknown, beyond any kind of objective knowledge, any kind of objectification or verbalization, a student of philosophy may naturally feel a doubt. What is this Atman which cannot be known by the senses or mind or intellect, which is invisible, which is beyond description, beyond explanation, beyond definition? It is some kind of a fantasy. This question may arise. So in order to address that problem, the second chapter establishes Atma Astitvam, that Atman is a reality. And to understand Atman, one needs certain qualifications, certain characteristics, and in order to give a concrete picture of this reality, a story is presented, which I have already explained this, but I am quickly going through what we have already explained earlier. A story is presented in order to drive home the idea that it is not just a fantasy talking about one transcendental spiritual reality which is beyond description and definitions. So the story of Yaksha is presented. Yaksha comes here as a brilliant but brief form. It exists only for a very short time, very brilliant. So one Yaksha appears, one supernatural, transcendental, spiritual being appears before these devas. So two important devas go in search, to investigate nature of Yaksha. First, Agni goes. Agni goes and finds out that it is something he cannot understand. And when Agni tried to prove its own power, his own power, burning power, he found out that he cannot even burn one blade of grass in the presence of Yaksha. And he was humiliated. Then Vayu went. Agni represents the power of word, and Vayu represents the power of prana. Vayu also could not find out the true nature of Yaksha. And not only that, Vayu found out that he cannot move even a blade of grass in the presence of Yaksha. So they both returned, and then Indra went. When Indra reached there to find out the true nature of Yaksha, the story takes a different turn. Indra found out the Yaksha was something supernatural, transcendental. Because when he reached there to make an inquiry, the Yaksha disappeared. But unlike the other two devas, Agni and Vayu, Indra was, let us say, a man of discrimination, discerning wisdom. He had devotion, he had humility, and he had the sadhana, chadushtaya sampatti. So instead of quickly returning, knowing Yaksha, Indra remained there in meditation because he found out that the Yaksha just disappeared. And when Indra meditated with all humility and with all spiritual fervor, there appeared before him a divine feminine being, Uma Devi. He represents Upanishad Vidya, Brahma Vidya. And that Uma Devi explains to Indra the true nature of Brahman. And not only that, it tells Indra the Yaksha was Brahman itself. So as a result of at least seeing Yaksha from a distance, though could not understand him completely, Vayu and Agni became important among the devas. And Indra, because of his higher spiritual fitness, he could learn this Brahma Vidya from Uma Devi. What happened was Indra became the chief among the devas. This is the story, which means in order to understand Atma Vidya, one needs humility and certain qualifications like sadhana chadushtaya sampatti and the necessary fervor to understand supreme truth. After this story, after the third chapter, the fourth chapter begins, and I'm going to give a brief description of the fourth chapter because we are going to discuss the fourth, fifth and sixth chapter. Fourth chapter is the last chapter. We are going to discuss, and we are coming to the end of the session. Now there is a portion in Shankaracharya's commentary which I want to present before you in order to emphasize the supreme wisdom, the profoundness, the depth of the Upanishads. Shankaracharya gives a brief and very interesting description as to why Indra could react differently to this mysterious experience. Agni went first. Agni found out that it could not even burn a blade of grass in the presence of Yaksha, because the power of burning belongs to Yaksha, God. Yaksha here represents Brahman or God, the supreme reality. Whatever power we have got, whatever potency we have got, it actually doesn't belong to this body-mind complex. It belongs to supreme transcendental reality. That is one important lesson that you learn in the fourth chapter of this book. But the story provides a background for it. So Indra remained, so that is explained by Shankaracharya's commentary. After this we will enter the fourth chapter. Tad yaksham yasmin akashe akasha pradeshe atmanam darshayitva tirobhudam indrascha brahmanaka tirodhanakale yasmin akashe asit sa indraha tasminneva akashe tasthu kim tad yaksham iti dhyayen. So when Yaksha disappeared all of a sudden, when Indra reached the place, that did not make him disappointed. He stood there meditating on the Supreme Being. That is an important lesson from the Upanishads. Because when Indra was humiliated, because Indra went to find out the mystery of Yaksha with all bravado, because he was the chief of the Devas, he thought he will be able to solve the problem, which Agni and Vayu failed. But when Indra reached there, he could not even see Yaksha. Yaksha immediately disappeared. So instead of returning empty-handed, what he did, he stood there in all humility and all devotion. So in spiritual life, when we become humble and when we are equipped with the essential qualifications of a spiritual seeker, which is technically called sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, that is a proper understanding of what is real and what is unreal, and a strong inclination to hold fast to the real. That's very important. Even to live a very balanced life in this world, we must always keep in our mind what is that which really matters in our life. Something that a problem that may not exist tomorrow, we need not worry too much today. So there are certain things that we normally worry too much about. But once we remember that that is a situation which is going to change soon, then we will be able to use this spiritual tool of non-attachment. So that is an important thing. That is first, nitya anitya vastu vivekaka, proper understanding of what real is and what is unreal. Indra had that quality and had humility. So Shankaracharya says, sa indraha tasminneva akasi tasthu kim tad yaksham iti dhyayan. Meditating, what is this yaksha? What is this mystery? Instead of going away, returning quickly, he just stood there meditating on the supreme reality. Na nivavrude agnyadivad. Just like Agni, Vayu and other devas, he did not return empty-handed. Tasya indrasya yakshe bhaktim buddhva vidya umarupini pradurbhut strirupa sa indraha tam umam bahushobhamanam sarvesham ki shobhamananam shobhanatama vidya. So there is a description of that Uma. The Uma Devi was actually the embodiment of Upanishad Vidya, Brahma Vidya. So Brahma Vidya itself took a human form. Bahushobhamana means effulgent, supreme in his effulgence. That form appeared before Indra. And then that Devi, Upanishad Vidya, Brahma Vidya, taking a human form, explained to him the truth of Brahman. Now, this you find in many other Upanishads. When we take up our own spiritual journey, at different levels, mysterious spiritual truths are revealed to us. It's not a miracle. When we take our journey into our own true nature, at different levels of our spiritual evolution, great truths will be revealed to us. So we can give the example Satyagama Japala. A great example. Satyagama Japala story you find in the Chandogya Upanishad. So Satyagama was a boy who went to Gautama, Brahma Vidyam Bhavati Varishyami. In fact, he went to Gautama and asked for Brahma Vidya, and there is a mysterious story behind. I'm not going to those details. So when Gautama found out that Satyakama was a true disciple, a true spiritual seeker, because he spoke the truth, then he accepted him as a disciple, and then he gave him 400 cows, hungry, old, battered, weak cows, and asked him to take these cows to the forests. And when the number reaches 1000, you return. This was the way of teaching Brahma Vidya to Gautama. You find the Chandogya Upanishad. Now what happened to Satyakama? He went to the forests, and the story tells you that after some time, Agni appeared and taught him 1/4 of Brahma Vidya. And then one Rishabha, a bull, appeared. And then a Hamsa appeared, a swan, and then a Margu bird appeared. So these 4 creatures which belong to the animal kingdom, and of course Agni is a natural phenomenon, appeared one after another and taught him Brahma Vidya. When one day he was doing his Ajnadhana, maybe Sandhya Vandana, etc., with great fervor and devotion. Because of Satyakama's Shraddha, devotion, purity, integrity, what happened, Atman, that is already within his own mind, the Antaryami Atman, it began to unfold. So one part of his doubts, his problem was solved without any effort. And then at another time, when he continued sincerely following the instructions of the Guru, that is looking after the cows properly, giving them food properly, giving them bath properly, taking them around for grazing, out of the sincerity, that Nishkama Karma, that pure, dedication to his own Swadharma, what happened? His mind became pure, Chitta Siddhi. When his mind became pure, Jnana Prapti, and then Moksha. So, through sincere effort or bhakti, we actually unfold the spiritual reality present in all of us, and in different stages, at different levels of our spiritual evolution, the problem is so slowly solved and the mystery resolved. So this is what happened to Indra. When Indra remained there without going back, when he stood there meditating with a pure mind, immediately he felt a divine form appeared in front of him, and that divine form taught him Brahma Vidya. So this is the spiritual significance of this incident. In our life, when we undertake any work, any kind of engagement, physical, intellectual engagement, any kind of engagement, with sincerity and purity, then what happens? Something happens to our mind. Our mind undergoes a complete change. It overhauls itself. It becomes pure because of a practice of sincerity, integrity and purity. Karmanishthaya chitta siddhidvarena pushartha hedutvam na swadandrena jnananisthadu swadandrena pushartha heduhu anyan apeksha. Shankaracharya says this karmanishta, karma yoga will bring out that Atman that is present in all of us. So this was what happened to Indra. Now we will go to the 4th chapter. That's a very important. I want to give a brief description of the 4th chapter. The 4th chapter contains some very important topics. One is Brahma Vidya is extolled, and then certain methods of Upasanas are presented, and then Karma Yoga and different forms of spiritual practices are explained. Now, 4 types of upasanas are explained in the 4th chapter, the last chapter. They are technically called 2 forms of Adidevata Upasana. Adidevata means meditating on something external. So here you find Vidyut and Nimesha are given 2 symbols for meditation. Vidyut here means, the Yaksha came in a split second, effulgent, beautiful, attractive, and disappeared. Then Nimesha means blinking of the eye, opening Unmesha Nimishotpanna, you find in Leda Sahasranama. Now, the Yaksha is meditated upon, Brahman is meditated upon using some external symbols, cosmic symbols, that there are 2 types of examples given here, as I mentioned. One is Vidyut, the other something like lightning, and then opening and closing of the eyes. This Brahma Jnanam will come all of a sudden as we evolve in spiritual life. Just like the light removes darkness all of a sudden, not slowly. So it is a lightning experience. And in Nimesha, it is an effortless thing. So just by the power of Brahman, the cosmic phenomenon, the universe comes into existence, exists and disappears. Then another kind of upasana is mentioned, Adhyatma Upasana, where we are asked to meditate upon our own mind, our own thought. Then the 4th one is Tadvana Upasana, that is Tadvanam Guna Visishta Upasana. Tad here means Devatanam. Vanam here means Van Pujayam. Sambhakto means Vana here means not forest. Vana dhatu is taken in the sense Sambhakto Pujayam, mean worshipability, adorability, deserving of honor. So once we understand the essential glory in everything, and when we realize that the power, the glory, the real greatness that is present in everything, everywhere, actually belongs to Brahman. It is the attribute of Brahman, and then meditating on that attribute. This is called Tadvana Upasana. So as I read the text, these ideas become clear. I shall try to read the text now. 4th chapter. Please take the book, 4th chapter. It's very important book, because within a very short time I want to finish this particular text, that is 4th chapter. If you have got the book, please take. Sa brahmeti hovaja brahmano va edad vijaye mahiyadhum iti tato haiva vidam chakara brahmeti. This is the first mantra. Now, here there is a conversation coming from Uma. When Uma appeared before Indra, and Uma, we should remember Uma here represents Upanishad Brahma Vidya, because once we become sadhana chadushtaya sampannas, we are endowed with sadhana chadushtaya sampatti, spiritual qualifications, then we approach a teacher. From a teacher you get shastra jnanam, and that's how we slowly evolve in spiritual life in the traditional circle. So when Indra showed his humility and his spiritual fitness, then Uma told him this victory. You have to remember the old story when there was a war between Devas and Asuras. Devas became victorious, they became proud. The story is given in the 3rd chapter that I already explained in the last class. So when Devas became victorious, they became haughty, arrogant and proud, thought that the victory was because of their power, their ability. So God himself wanted to appear before them to give them a proper understanding that it is not because of their power, but because of blessings of Brahman that they got victory over the Asuras. So, here Brahmano va edad vijaye mahiyadhamiti. Actually, it is Brahman that gave you this victory, but you become so proud of your own victory, thinking that it is because of your power that you became victorious. Tato haiva vidam chakara brahmeti. Next mantra. Tasmadva ete devaha aditaram iva anyan devan idak nirvayurindraha tehi enam nedishtam pasparshuhu tehi enat prathamo vidam chakara brahma iti. Indra became the disciple of Uma, disciple of Brahma Vidya. So because of that greatness, Indra became the chief among all the devas. Tasmadva ete devaha aditaram iva anyan devan. Among the devas, three devas, Indra, Agni and Vayu are most important. Why? Because Agni and Vayu could at least get a glimpse of Yaksha. Brahmanda could not understand it. Because they came close to Yaksha and they had a conversation with Yaksha. And Agni found that he cannot burn even a blade of grass in the presence of Yaksha. So eventually the story tells you that the power of burning that Agni represented actually belongs to Yaksha. See, Srotrasya Srotram Manaso Manoyat Vachoka Vacham Sau Pranasya Pranaha. So the ear, the sense of hearing behind the sense of hearing, and the sense of sight behind the sense of sight, the eye before the eye, or the ear before the ear. It is not the ear that is hearing, it is the power of Brahman that manifests through the sense of hearing that helps you to hear things. So the whole potency belongs to Brahman. So what happens? The Agni and Vayu, though they could not understand Brahman, Yaksha, but still they came close to him. Because of that, among the Devas, they got some degree of prominence. But Indra became the chief because Indra did not return when he found that he could not see even Yaksha. What happened? He remained. He continuously prayed and meditated, and then Upanishad Vidya, Brahma Vidya appeared before him, and from that Upanishad Vidya he understood the nature of Brahman. So Indra became the chief. That's the meaning. Aditaram iva anyan devan yadak nirvayurindraha tehi era nedishtam pasparshuhu. They came very close to Brahman. So they became great. And among them, Indra became Prathamo Vidam Chakara. Indra was the only one among the Devas who really got Brahma Vidya. And other Devas learned only from Indra. So those three Devas who became prominent became chief among them. It really shows if we take some interest in Brahma Vidya, the transcendental spiritual knowledge, that gives us a kind of elevation, that gives us a universal spiritual outlook. In real life, we find anyone who reads the Gita or Upanishads will naturally get a little bit of what I said earlier, the spiritual common sense. You will be able to look at the world, look at persons, look at life as a whole with a sense of maturity. You will become adults, spiritually speaking. Otherwise, we may become adults in terms of biological evolution. But becomes intellectually and mentally and emotionally, we become mature. We attain maturity when we take an interest in spiritual pursuit, spiritual knowledge. So the story symbolically tells us Because Agni and Vayu and Indra, three of them, had some interaction with Brahma Vidya, Indra very directly, they became prominent. So the importance of the pursuit of Brahma Jnanam is mentioned. Here they call Brahma Vidya Stuti. Then the mantra continues, Tasmat va indraha aditaram iva anyan devan sahi enam nedishtam pasparsha sahi enat prathamo vidam chakara brahmedi. We already discussed here. Now, for the fourth mantra of the fourth chapter explains another subject. That is, the techniques of meditation is called different kinds of sadhanas are explained here. As I mentioned, 4 sadhanas are explained here. 2 sadhanas, 2 types of meditation is called Adhideivata sadhana. The third one is Adhyatma. The fourth one is Tadvana sadhana. We will explain. First, Tasesha adeshu yadedat vidyutu vidyadat a iti nyamimishat a ityadidaivatam. So this text is a bit complicated. You find certain words are used here. A is mentioned and cha. A here means is a comparison. In Vedic tradition is called as it were, like, etc. So tasesha adesho idedat vidyutu vidyadat a. So the prose order is tasya adeshaha. Adesha means and a message, a great spiritual message in the form of an illustration. Esha edat vidyutaha vidyudat a iti. So Yaksha is meditated upon as if it is like lightning. So Brahmajnanam takes place all of a sudden. One may struggle for hundreds of thousands of life cycles or maybe for several years. It is not consistent 1, 2, 3 like that, it's not step by step. After several years of spiritual practice, all of a sudden the truth is revealed within. So that phenomenon is to be compared to lightning. So Yaksha is to be meditated upon as if it is the cosmic phenomenon of lightning. If a Yaksha appeared before the Devas like lightning, effulgent, it was very kshanika, it was for a very split second and then disappeared. That's what happened to Indra. So that's why I explained here. So one upasana is to meditate upon Brahman, thinking of it as lightning. The second one is Nimesha, that is Nyamimishat. That means opening of the eyes and closing the eyes, blinking. The entire universe emerges, exists and disappears. Unmesha Nimishotpanna, you find in Lalita Sahasranama again. The cosmic evolution, the cosmic existence, the emergence of the world, the cosmos, existing for billions of years, and then going back to the cause. It's called pralaya, pakarshena liyadedi pralaya. The effect going back to the cause. The sthula going back to sukshma. The whole process takes place as effortless events in the hands of the Lord. So it is called like blinking. So one can meditate upon this as equivalent to the ultimate reality, Brahman. Brahman itself creates this world effortlessly. And it exists in the world, and the world exists and then dissolves it. It's like blinking of the eyes, opening and closing. So these are different types of meditation that is explained here. This is called Adhideva Upasana. The second one is more subtle. It's called Adhyatma Upasana, where we meditate upon our own mind, our own thought. Our thought itself becomes an object of meditation. If you meditate upon your own thought, you reach a point where you transcend thought, where you get a glimpse of the transcendental. We transcend the mind. We go beyond the mind if we meditate upon the mind. But technically, from a psychological point of view, this mantra must be the real genesis, the original source of mindfulness meditation, which is originally found in the Buddhist tradition in the Mahasadhyupattana Sutta and Sadhyupattana Sutta. You find two suttas in the Digha Nikaya and Majjhima Nikaya in the Pali canonical literature. You find original discourses of Buddha, where Buddha explains the process of remaining in a state of perpetual awareness and detachment. Being aware of the kshanikada, the transitoriness of everything, by meditating upon every momentary thought, but with complete detachment. So you became aware of it. It's kind of perpetual awareness, practice of perpetual awareness with detachment. So that is actually found in the Kena Upanishad, this is Samaveda. Atha Adhyatmam. Now Adhyatma Upasana is explained here. Ida edad gecchativa manaha anena chedad upasmaradi abhikshnam sankalpaka. Mind goes to Brahman. When you meditate upon mind, you meditate upon thought. At some point you find that this thought, when intensely carried to the highest point, reaches the transcendental region that is called Brahman. So that's why Atha Adhyatmam Ideda Gecchativa Manaka. It is as if mind Gecchati Iva, not really going, but coming close to Atman or Brahman. Anena Chayeda Upasmarati. So every sankalpa or every thought, every smriti, every memory, every thought process becomes a tool, becomes a reflection of Brahman. Because when you think intensely, you transcend the body, you transcend even the mind. Thought, when carried to the highest level, actually transcends mind itself. That's why great scientists, great artists, great literary geniuses, when they reach the highest degree of perfection, they are traveling through their thought in search of the transcendental, and they get a glimpse of the transcendental. They don't necessarily become Brahmajnanis because they have not gone through the preliminary training like Sadhana Chatushtaya Sambatti and other important qualifications. But without properly acquiring these qualifications, still, when they intensely travel this process of thought, through the vehicle of thought, they reach a point where they transcend the empirical, transcend the worldly phenomenon. And that's how a great painting, a great literary work, a great musical composition is born, because it becomes an expression of the divine, expression of the transcendental. When an average literary genius or an artistic genius reaches that point, he only gets a glimpse of it. But when a yogi, when a trained spiritual seeker reaches that point, it will transform his life. He becomes a Brahmajnani. Otherwise, he gets a glimpse and he returns. So, Atha Adhyatmam, meditating on thought. Yadedad gacchadiva manaha anena cha edad upasmarati abhikshnam sankalpaha. So smaranam, sankalpa, bhavana, they all reflect Brahmajnana. Our thought actually becomes a reflecting medium from Brahman. At the level of our Antakarana, it is called Chidabhasa in the Vedantic tradition. So every sankalpa, every imagination, every thought becomes a reflection, because it helps us to transcend the bodily level and it takes us beyond the empirical level. And then we have got the sixth one. I shall conclude this text and then I can leave you to ask questions. Then we'll explain if there are many portions yet to be explained. Now we are coming to the sixth mantra. Tattha tadvanam nama tadvanam iti upasidavyam saya edadevam veda abhihayanam sarvani bhutani samvanchanti. This is a very important mantra here. Now, the next one is this, Tadvanam. So, we have to remember this word Tadvanam. Tadvanam here is given as a synonym for Brahman, synonym for the transcendental reality. It is from the Vanu Dhatu. So, what is Tadvanam? Tadvanam is the higher transcendental vibhuti that is present in everything that is worthy of worship. Now, wherever you find some higher transcendental sublime vibhuti, yadyat vibhudima sattvam srimad ujidameva tattadeva avagacchatum mama tejomsha sambhavam. Everything is mama tejomsha sambhavam. Every manifestation of higher transcendental vibhuti, power, glory, greatness, intellectual, physical, or spiritual greatness, it is an expression of the all-pervading transcendental reality. Now, you meditate upon that aspect of the cosmic entities. Tadha tadvanam nama tadvanam iti upasidavyam. So, Bhashyakara says, Adhyatmam cha manapratyaya samakala abhivyakti dharmi. That is, Brahman reveals itself in every pulsation of our thought, our mind, everything. That is the meaning here. So, every thought is a pulsation of Brahman, and every superlative quality, every great vibhuti, power or glory, mahima that you find anywhere in the world that is worthy of honor and worship, that is an expression of the divine. So that is Tadvana Upasana mentioned here. Saya edadevam veda abhihayanam sarvani bhutani samvanchanti. So tesham devatanam vanam, in that sense. So the word vanam as forest is also related to this word, because we all people in ancient times used to depend upon forest for firewood, for food, for everything. Similarly, so forest was a divine entity. But in this context, the Vananiyam, Shankaracharya's Bhashya is Tadvanam tasya pranijatasya pratyagatma bhutatvad vanam vananiyam sambhajaniyam vanudhadu sambhakto, in that sense. Tasya pranijadasya pratyagatma bhutatvad vanam. In every living being, there is that pratyagatma, that antaryami, the divine reality present everywhere, in everything. That power may manifest in so many different ways, in so many different entities. Take that uniqueness, that vibhuti, and meditate that vibhuti as an expression of the transcendental Brahman. This is the fourth kind of meditation, Upasana, that is explained here. The seventh mantra is this. It is again, you have to remember, these Upasanas are recommended for those who are not ready to understand the meaning of the great spiritual truths explained in the first chapter. So in the first chapter, with the first and second chapter really speaking, you find certain higher spiritual ideas are given here. Yat vacha anabhyudidam yena vak abhyudyade tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nenam yadidam uvasade. Like that, whatever words cannot explain, but what enables words to explain things, whatever the eyes cannot see, but what enables, what mysterious transcendental power enables the eyes to see empirical things, that is Brahman. Tadeva Brahmatvam Vidhi. You find the first and second chapters, you find. So, in the earlier chapters, the great spiritual truths are explained in a very abstract, subtle language, Pradibodha, Vididam Madam, etc. In every Bodha Vritti, you can find the expression of the divine. So these great ideas are explained in a very subtle language in the first two chapters. But that's when for Uttamadhigaris, those who are highly evolved, those who are already fit for the highest spiritual instruction. But there are those who may not be ready for it. For such Madhyamadhigaris, these four types of Upasanas are recommended here. Two Adhidevata Upasana and one Adhyatma Upasana, and the fourth one Tadvana Upasana. I mean, meditating upon the vibhuti, the glory, the power, the uniqueness that you find in every phenomenon. The seventh mantra is Upanishadam bho bruhi tyukta te Upanishad brahmim pavate Upanishad abrumaiti. So here, this is a simple matter, idea explained here. Listening to this, the Shishya, the disciple, puts a question to the teacher, a request rather. Now please teach me Upanishad. Then the teacher tells him, Upanishad I have already explained to you. And then in the eighth mantra, the teacher explains certain more moral values, instruction of moral values. That is certain ways to explain, to reach this level of spiritual fitness. Tasyai tapodama karma iti pradishta veda sarvangani satyamayathanam. Now, for this spiritual pursuit, there are certain moral instructions necessary. Tapa, dhamma, and karma yoga, eventually chitta shuddhi, that will help you to attain brahmajnanam and moksha. Tapa means there are three types of tapa: mana, vak, kaya. At the mental level, bodily level, at the physical level, moderation and austerity, and then self-restrained dhamma, and then doing whatever we do without any attachment, that is karma nishtha or karma yoga. When we practice this, slowly we reach a point of spiritual fitness. It's called chitta shuddhi. Once chitta shuddhi is reached, we automatically find that within our own self, the truth reveals itself. It happened to Satyagama and it happened to Indra. Indra just stood there. Indra went in search of Yaksha, and he thought he was the chief of the Devas, so he will be able to solve the mystery. After reaching there, he found that Yaksha even refused to give him his vision. Yaksha just disappeared. So Indra felt totally humiliated. But he was not disheartened. That's because he was a sadhaka. He had reached some degree of sadhana chaturshya sampatti. So he had discerning wisdom remained meditated with all humility, and then Upanishad Brahmavidya appeared and taught him the truth, and that's how he became Brahmajnani. And from Indra, others also. So this is the end of the Upanishad, and I think I have tried to give a brief outline of the whole text, and now I think I will be able to explain more in the course of interaction. You are most welcome to ask whatever questions. Most welcome.
If you have a question, you can
Yeah.
raise your hand, then unmute yourself and talk. We'll go one by one. Maharaj, I have a question.
Yeah.
While we are waiting for others. You mentioned about the Tadvana meditation. Is that any different from other meditation? Is there anything more to that? Or is it just what Indra did is a Tadvana meditation, or is there a different explanation?
Indra did not do Tadvana meditation. His humiliation made him humble. When he found that the Yaksha who gave darshan, vision to Agni and Vayu, refused to remain there when he reached there with all bravado, instead of disheartening, it made him humble, and he stood there meditating on this mysterious power. So Indra did not practice any of these four upasanas mentioned here. So Indra was a spiritual seeker, but he was also very proud. So in the other commentaries say Indra was already a spiritual seeker. So he had the sense to be humble when he was humiliated instead of getting disheartened and returning. So that's a big difference. Okay. You know, a text like this will take several classes, several months. So I have to compress this within a few sessions. So naturally, there may be many gaps. So, but you are most welcome to ask for clarifications.
Anybody else has a question? Maharaj, I'll follow up on one question, last question from my end. What can we learn on the Tadvana of the four? Especially Tadvana. How can we practice it?
Yeah, this can be practiced in our simple life situations, you know. Wherever you find any uniqueness, any glory, any vibhuti, that vibhuti is an expression of some transcendental divine power. So it may be the artistic skill of a great artist, literary genius of a literary person, or the beautiful voice of a musician, or even the skills that some people display in cooking, even in your own IT field. When you reach a point of perfection that goes beyond the normal level of perfection that you can reach through sheer effort, you find there is the presence of some non-empirical, some higher power playing there. This becomes very simple to recognize in the lives of great spiritual teachers. But you can find this happening in the life of ordinary persons who sometimes display extraordinary skills, which is not necessarily the result of constant practice, because constant practice also can take you to a very high degree of perfection. But there is some kind of perfection that is not reachable or attainable through constant and consistent practice at the physical level. So that uniqueness is called Vanam. So Van Dhatu one puja arhaya means where somebody is adorable, somebody is honorable, worthy of respect and honor and worship. You don't worship a person who has become highly accomplished or highly skilled through constant practice. But suddenly you find a small little child playing music in a very extraordinary way. You are surprised, you find. You don't find a musical student studying in academy who works very hard displaying the same skill. But suddenly you find children who are very young suddenly displaying extraordinary skills. It may be coming from previous life cycles, Purva Janmas, that's true from Hindu standpoint, but still it is something extraordinary. So that Vibhuti is an expression of the divine. That's what Lord Krishna says in the 10th chapter. Yadyat Vibhuti Mat Sattvam. That's the point.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yogesh, go ahead.
Pranam Swamiji.
Yeah.
I wanted to clarify one point. In this Upanishad, early on it mentions that everything is powered by Brahman. Like if you think of any living being, if you are hearing something, is powered by Brahman. If you are seeing anything, is powered by Brahman. So, but we also know that Brahman or Atman is all pervading. So if you think of a living being at the point of death, it would be incorrect, I would think, to assume that Atman has departed because it's all pervading. So I would like you to clarify, is it the Antakarna that is departing and is the reflecting medium that is not there? That clarification would help.
Yeah, that's true. So in death what happens, it just like the mirror has disappeared. So the mirror image will not be there. The reflecting medium has disappeared. Antakarna. So the Jivatma is nothing but a reflection of all-pervading Brahman in the Antakarana of the particular person. When a person dies, that Antakarana disappears. Just like a pot full of water reflects the sun. So we have thousands of pots of water. One pot of water, one pot breaks. So the sun will not reflect on that broken pot because there is no water. Like that, when Antakarana ceases to exist, then the reflecting medium no longer there. But the sun is always there above. The Brahman never disappears. Brahman is always there. It's called that reflection of Brahman in that mana or buddhi or antakarana is called Chidabhasa.
Swamiji, I have a clarification question. You mentioned 4 types of meditations. So the first 2 are Adhidaivat. So what are the 2? I didn't understand.
Yeah, the third one is Adhyatma.
No, the first two. The first 2 Adhidaivat, what are the 2?
Oh yeah, I shall explain. So there are 2 types of Adhidevata meditation mentioned here. One is the lightning, Vidyut. So that's a Vidyut, Vidyut, lightning. So there is some degree of comparison or similarity between this symbology of meditation and what we meditate upon. The Vidyut is, it comes suddenly and is brilliant and it illuminates everything around and then disappears quickly. That's what happened to Yaksha. So Yaksha is Brahman. So one can use the lightning itself as symbolic of the reality of Brahman itself. When you reach Brahma Jnanam, Brahma Sashakara, it doesn't come in slow degrees. People in ancient times, you find in the mythological stories of Puranas, Rishis, great sages meditating for several years. And one day suddenly they become illuminated. That's what happened to Buddha. Swami Vivekananda himself, even close to our own times, he was traveling in the Himalayas. He sat under a tree near, maybe close, not far from Almora, may think Mayavati region or Almora region. So there he suddenly found out the truth behind principle that macrocosm and microcosm are built along the same lines. The entire cosmos, our own little inner world, they are built along the same lines. What is within us is nothing but a miniature expression of entire cosmic reality. So, in meditation, in spiritual practices, realization comes all of a sudden. That means suddenly the dark corners of the mind are suddenly illumined, are gone. The darkness gone all of a sudden. And you cannot explain, you cannot really explain that experience. So that's a similarity between Vidyut, lightning, and Brahman, Yaksha. The second one is Nimesha, blinking of the eye, opening and closing of the eye. The entire cosmic existence can be compared. Look at the universe, the cosmos. If you can think in terms of trillions of years, difficult to count or estimate time. The entire cosmos coming to the present shape, existing for millions or billions of years, and then maybe you believe in big crunch and big bang coming one after the other, and again the re-emergence of the cosmos. So the creation, existence, dissolution, srishti, sthiti and samkhara, and again sthiti, srishti. This happens in cosmic cycles. From the transcendental perspective, it's just like blinking of the eyes, opening and closing of the eyes. You don't work hard to open your eyes or close your eyes. You don't work hard. It's a natural, effortless, spontaneous. Like that whole creation and this process, this cyclic creation, existence and dissolution take place in this effortless, spontaneous, natural way. So that's the symbology of meditation.
No, thank you. One more general. So several times I have heard this. You have also mentioned in your lectures some connections or similarity between Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. So if you can give us some clues or direction, because many times Upanishads are hard to read, Bhagavad Gita a little bit easier. So many times many people I know read Bhagavad Gita. So if you can comment some guidance as to how we can see that connection.
In the beginning of the Bhashya, Shankaracharya himself says, Yadidam Gita Shastram Samasta Vedartha Sara Sangraha Bhudam. That's what he says. So Gita is a condensation of the whole philosophy of Upanishads. You find the Upanishads are a bit irregular. There is no strict chronology in the Upanishad literature. It's not so well organized as the Gita. Gita is organized in the sense you find, apart from the philosophical content, there is also an emphasis on the practical sadhana part of it. How to practice different disciplines, spiritual disciplines, that you find in the Gita. So Gita is the first book that explains spiritual practices in terms of yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga, etc. In the Upanishad you find all these karma yoga you find. In fact, Satyakama Jabala story itself is a wonderful example of a little boy through karma yoga reaching mental purity, chitta shuddhi, and eventually as he reached different levels of chitta shuddhi, the reality self-revealed itself to him. So you find in the Upanishad tradition also you find a lot of bhaktas, devotees, karma yogis, jnanis. But in the Gita, it is more or less well organized. So Gita is in comparison to Upanishad, Gita is more modern. The language also is more modern. The Upanishad language is very archaic, is part of Vedas, and the language used is not in strict conformity with the standard grammatical rules of Panini, who lived in the 6th or 7th century BC. So Gita is more modern, and Upanishads are much more ancient. So the language. If you got any more doubt, okay. Okay, shall we conclude?
One more question.
Yeah.
There is one question from the YouTube.
Yeah.
So Dilip Ramachandran asks, Namaskaram Swamiji, you had mentioned about meditating on thought as an upasana.
Yeah.
Could you please elaborate on the means for this upasana?
Yeah.
So meditating on the thought.
Yeah. When you meditate upon thought, you transcend all mental vibrations. You reach a point of stillness. So that's an exercise. So you reach a transcendental plane when you meditate upon mind or thought. See, from body to mind and thought is a long distance. To begin with, you find when you meditate upon your own mind, mind slowly begins to become calm and quiet. When you meditate, you should not identify with what happens in your mind. If you sit quiet still without doing any physical engagement, you will find that a lot of agitating thoughts emerge in the mental plane. Fine, worries and anxieties and the images of your previous activities in the office or workplaces all will emerge one after another. But once you concentrate on every micro thought, then you won't distinguish one from the other. So eventually, mind develops the ability to meditate at the same time, detach itself from mind and thought. Once you detach, you are slowly identifying yourself with something that goes beyond mind. That helps you to go beyond mind. Meditation on mind helps us to go beyond mind. And to go beyond mind is the goal in spiritual life. So once you go beyond the mind, you will be able to connect with the Atman. But before this, we must practice a lot of disciplines, lifestyle, some practice of yamas and niyamas, and dhamma is mentioned here, restraint, tapa is mentioned, moderation, austerity, discipline in what we think, that is manatapa. Then what we do, physical level, that is kaya tapa, what we speak, So disciplines and austerity should be practiced to some extent. Then only we will be able to practice this higher meditation. Otherwise, agitating thoughts will not allow us to meditate. So some degree of constant discipline, physical discipline, mental discipline, discipline what we speak should be practiced. And then what happens when we try to meditate upon mind and thought, agitating thoughts will not come, or we will be able to overcome that. And the practice of yama and niyamas mentioned in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, ahimsa, satya, steya, brahmacharya, parigriha, shauja, santosha, tapaswadhyaya, isara pranidhana. These disciplines are also very important before undertaking the discipline of thinking or meditating on our own mind or our own thought.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah. Indu, please ask.
Swamiji, this Yaksha and Parvati, Uma Devi,
Yeah.
is the reference of Shiva and Parvati?
Yeah, that's in the tradition, Uma Devi, Parvati. Parvati is a wife of Shiva.
Yes.
Yeah. But technically, here, Uma Devi is taken as a symbol of Brahma Vidya, Upanishad Shastra, Upanishad Vidya. One should learn these higher ideas properly and then practice Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, etc. Yaksha is, the word Yaksha itself is coming, it's like Pujarha, that's the meaning. Somebody who is worthy of worship, that's the real meaning of Yaksha. Yeah, Yajanarha. Practicing Vedic rituals in honor of somebody, that's Yaksha. So Yaksha itself is taken to be a symbol of Brahman in the particular context of this story. Yet remember the mythological stories of Shiva, Parvati, all that emerged much later. But the Kenopanishad belongs to an earlier period of our theological evolution, philosophical evolution. Shiva Purana must have got many of these ideas from Upanishads like this.
Maharaj, one more question.
Yeah.
Praveen, please ask. We'll unmute you. You have a question. Go ahead, Praveen. So Praveen asks, Maharaj,
Yeah.
can you expand upon Yama and Niyamas a little bit?
Okay.
Lightly, in summary, in a brief.
Yeah. So yamas and niyamas are essential not only for spiritual seekers, even for people in general to make sensible living in the world. Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. These are yamas. Shauja, Sandosha, Tapaswadhyaya, Ishwar Pradhana are niyamas. Of which the first five, Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, are called very universal, very general. It's called Sarvabhauma. It's meant for everyone. So, total freedom from any thought of himsa, any action of himsa, any word of himsa, any harmful thought, harmful action, and harmful speech, and then adherence to truth, and then purity of life, chastity of life, and then not going in search of things unnecessarily, aparigraha, and then internal and external purity, shaucha, that is one of the niyamas. Purity is very important, physical purity, mental purity, etc. Then contentment, the ability to feel inner contentment with what we have, because that closes the doors to any possible greedy action. So there is a Shauja Sandosha. Sandosha means contentment. And then Ishwar Pradhana, surrender to God. And also reading Shastras, feeding our mind with spiritual food, and the ability to design our life to higher spiritual power. So these disciplines help us to settle our mind, to keep to a state of peaceful, calm, and quiet, tranquil state. That's one advantage of it. Greed will agitate the mind. We'll be always looking for things, though we may not need them. But if you don't practice aparigraha, the parigraha, getting things from others, taking things from others even when we are not in need of it, and then no santosha, no contentment, no satisfaction, all days will agitate the mind. Keep the mind always in a state of perpetual tension and stress. So in spiritual life is these disciplines that will keep our mind in a state of quietude and tranquility. When we reach this level of quietude and tranquility, and then when we try to meditate, then meditation becomes easy and natural. Because when agitating thoughts emerge in the mind, they will not shatter our mind, they will not unsettle our mind. Agitating thoughts may emerge, but they will not be able to unsettle our mind. If we don't have these disciplines, then what happens when we try to meditate? When agitating or unpleasant thoughts and vibrations emerge in the mental system, we won't be able to face them. We won't be able to continue serious spiritual practice. That's what happens.
So there is a question from YouTube, Maharaj, and there is one more person raising the hand. Two questions are there. So YouTube, Saugata asks, how is the Jivatman state resides without the Antakarana when there is no body? Is it possible to improve in spirituality without the body, only in the Atman state?
When we are living in this world, we cannot live without Antakarana. In fact, Jivatma itself is nothing but Paramatman existing in association with Antakarana. Mana, Buddhi, Chitta and Ahankara. So Atman itself is everywhere. Brahman is everywhere. See, the light is everywhere, sunlight is everywhere. When you take a mirror and show the mirror in a particular angle, you are able to throw a patch of light on the wall. If the mirror is square shaped, then a square shaped patch of light will fall on the wall. Once you remove that mirror, the sunlight doesn't disappear, but the sunlight in the shape of a patch of light will disappear because the reflecting medium, the mirror, is not there. Similarly, when a person dies, what happens? The Antakarana is gone. So what happens? Jivatma, as Jivatma, doesn't exist till it takes its next birth. So what really, according to Vedanta, what happens? See, according to Vedanta, this is true yoga and also Buddhist tradition also. When a person dies, whatever feelings and emotions and ideas and desires, unfulfilled desires, a person has in his mind, Antakarana, those desires will be looking for an instrument to fulfill those desires. Suppose you want to do something, you are looking for something. The person dies. And also correspondingly, in another part of the world, another person, which more or less corresponding to the same character, may be looking for somebody, and this jiva will find an Antakarana when it takes birth as a son or daughter of somebody else elsewhere. So, this journey from one jiva to another jiva will come to an end only when jiva realizes its identity with Atman. The Antakarana is only reflecting medium. Through sadhana, spiritual practice and meditation, if a person realizes his identity with Atman, then this journey from one life to another life, from one jivatma to another jivatma, this comes to an end. Otherwise, this constant cyclic rotation, this travel from one cycle to another cycle, one life to another life, will continue. So, jivatma cannot exist without Antakarana. When Antakarana is gone, the jivatma will remain for some time without an Antakarana. If the jivatma has left this body in a very unnatural way, it remains for some time searching for another body. That state is called in the state of when ghosts, supernatural beings, they don't have physical form, they'll be looking for another Antakarana. Okay.
So one last question, Maharaj. Probably this might be the last.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dilip. I'll unmute you.
Namaskaram, Swamiji.
Yeah.
Just want to confirm my understanding from the teaching. So a couple of things. One point is that first you have to search for Brahman in order to reach that goal. And secondly, if your ahankaram is very strong, then you will not, you will not be able to reach that goal. So obviously, it's for example, in the case of Agni and Vayu, they were not able to get that, and Indra because he made the effort, etc. So, question I have, I wanted to confirm that understanding is correct, and then the question I have is how to reduce ahankaram in day-to-day activities and life where you completely forget about those things as you function to the day-to-day life.
Yeah, what the most simple and the easiest way is to feed our mind with these thoughts, Upanishad thoughts. For example, when we constantly keep in touch with the idea that there is much a higher reality than the physical reality, than the worldly realities, that itself will give us a sense of inner humility. So once we keep in touch with these ideas and think of these ideas, then these ideas will slowly influence our mind and thinking. That way our mind slowly becomes humble enough, sensible enough to study more and practice prayer, meditation and the spiritual practices. That's what happens. So the simple way is to somehow keep feeding our mind with this food, these wonderful ideas, which is good food. As I often mention, when we eat bad food, our body falls sick. When we give bad food to our mind also falls sick. So arrogance and egoism, these are all different mental sickness, forms of different mental sickness. Similarly, if we keep our mind fed with good food, spiritual ideas, that actually automatically gives our mind the right attitude. Our mind assumes the right attitude, the right approach. Our emotional system, thinking system will naturally become more tranquil, peace and more mature. That's the idea.
There are no more questions, Maharaj. Yeah. And we are also running out of time. Yeah. Is there anybody we can have room for one question if somebody has? If not, we will close it here.
So, shall I do Shanti Mantra?
Oh, there is a question, Maharaj. Yeah. Shubha, please go ahead. I'll unmute you. Go ahead, Shubha.
Yeah. Maharaj, thank you for the lecture today. One question I had was, one of the things you mentioned is everything around you is a manifestation of Brahman. Yeah. But a lot of times it's very difficult, whether it's another human being or anything else, to kind of accept that if, that person is not nice to you or something. So how do you transition to kind of accepting everything as an incarnation of Brahman?
Now, everything need not be considered to be an incarnation of Brahman. The point is, everything is an expression of the same reality. So we may wonder how to look upon the unpleasant things as an expression of the same reality. It's just like the light that comes through a dark glass or a green glass or yellow glass or red glass. The light changes its color, but the light as such is the same. So once we accommodate this possibility of diversity and plurality and manifoldness, then we will have to confront the unpleasant, maybe the unpleasant things, but that should not shatter us. That should not be a big surprise to us, because people belong to different levels of spiritual evolution. We may be trying to practice great ideas, we may be attending these classes, we may be trying to take these ideas very seriously. That will certainly help us in a big way. But we should also remember that there are others who may not be familiar with these ideas. It may be that they have to take several thousands of life cycles more to be born and then come to know these ideas. So that possibility is always there. We should remember. If the whole world may not be attracted towards Vedantic philosophy, not at all. But we can practice this higher Vedantic thought by assuming this higher perspective. That's all. That means there will be the unpleasant things, but they will not will have such a damaging effect on our mind if we keep these ideas in mind. That's all.
Okay, Maharaj. There are some more questions, but we can cover that in the next session.
So before that, you have to announce next class and textbook. Already you mentioned Kathopanishad next class.
Yeah. So next lecture we'll start Kathopanishad, which is one of my favorites, and Swamiji has done lectures. So I will, if you're on the WhatsApp group, I've already shared one more link. I'll share a couple of links. This will be about Nachiketa's life and the questions he asks. So please share it with your other friends who may want to. That might be a good intro to Upanishad, because there's a lot more story there. And I will share a couple of documents. Swamiji told me in a private conversation, it's good to have the text in front of you. I had posted a link here. I will share that in my thank you note in response to Evite, as well as on the WhatsApp group, so that you have it handy when Swamiji is describing it next time. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Swamiji, for the closing.
Okay. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu.